Thanksgiving at the Harrison household was always an exercise in humiliation. Every year, my family gathered to compare achievements, measure successes, and remind me of my apparent failures. But this year was different. This year, I knew something they didn't. Madison's still working at that tiny investment firm. My sister Vanessa announced to the assembled family, wine glass dangling from her manicured fingers. What's it called again, Mads? Cornerstone something? I took a slow sip of water, hiding my smile. Just Cornerstone Partners. Right, she smirked. The boutique firm. How quaint. What my family didn't know was that Cornerstone Partners was mine. I'd founded it 3 years ago, and we now managed over $2 billion in assets. But they all thought I was just another employee, grinding away at a small-time operation. I'd never corrected their assumption. At least she's employed, my mother sighed, adjusting her pearls. Though I don't understand why you won't come work for Harrison Global. Your father could make you a VP tomorrow. Ah, Harrison Global. The family company. My father's pride and joy. Built over 30 years into a respectable mid-sized investment firm. They handled about $500 million in assets, a quarter of what Cornerstone managed. But they didn't know that. I'm happy where I am, Mom. Happy? My brother Derek scoffed from across the table. Making what, 80 grand a year? While we're closing multi-million-dollar deals. I thought about the $80 million deal sitting on my desk back at the office. The one that would determine Harrison Global's future. But we'd get to that soon enough. Not everyone needs a corner office to be successful, I said mildly, helping myself to more turkey. That's because you've never had one, Vanessa laughed. Remember when Madison thought she could start her own firm? Right out of business school. The family chuckled at the memory. 3 years ago, fresh from my MBA at Wharton, I'd announced my intention to strike out on my own. Their reaction had been immediate and brutal. You'll never succeed, Dad had declared. You don't have the killer instinct. No connections. No real experience. You'll crawl back within 6 months. Instead, I'd done something they never expected. I'd succeeded, quietly, efficiently, and completely under their radar. How is Dad's big merger going? I asked, changing the subject. The one with Summit Technologies? Derek preened. Biggest deal in Harrison Global's history. $80 million. Once it closes next month, we'll be playing in the big leagues. I nodded, thinking about the thick folder of documents in my office safe. The ones that would determine whether that merger lived or died. Speaking of business, my father spoke up. Madison, this stubborn independence of yours has gone on long enough. Harrison Global is family. We take care of our own. I met his eyes across the table. Do we, Dad? Is that what we do? He frowned at my tone. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I smiled, just remembering how supportive everyone was when I wanted to start my own firm. Oh, not this again. Vanessa rolled her eyes. We were trying to protect you from failure. You should be grateful. Grateful? I set down my fork. For what? The constant criticism? The undermining? The bets you all made on how quickly I'd fail? Now, Madison, my mother started, but I wasn't finished. Did you know I heard you all at that Christmas party 3 years ago, laughing about how I'd never make it, betting on whether I'd last 3 months or 6. The table fell silent. Even Derek had the grace to look uncomfortable. That was a long time ago, Dad said gruffly. We were concerned about you. No, you were concerned about appearances, about what people would say if a Harrison failed publicly. I stood up. Thank you for dinner, Mom. I have an early meeting tomorrow. With your little investment firm? Vanessa couldn't resist one last dig. Any big deals coming up? I paused at the door, thinking about the Summit Technologies merger documents, about how Harrison Global's future rested on my signature. You never know, I said softly. Business is full of surprises. The next morning, in my actual office, a corner suite on the top floor of downtown's most prestigious building, I reviewed the merger paperwork again. Harrison Global needed this deal. They'd leveraged everything on it, betting the firm's future on this one massive acquisition. What they didn't know was that Summit Technologies was one of Cornerstone's key clients. Any major moves required my approval. Ms. Harrison, my assistant Sophie appeared at the door. Your 9 a.m. is here. The Summit Technologies board. I straightened my Armani blazer, not that my family would recognize the subtle tailoring. They still thought I shopped at department stores. Send them in. The Summit board filed in, led by their CEO, James Morton. He smiled when he saw me. One of the few people who knew the true scope of my success. Madison, he shook my hand warmly. Always a pleasure. Though I suspect this meeting won't be pleasant for everyone involved. The Harrison Global merger? I sat down behind my desk. No, I expect not. They have no idea, do they? He settled into one of the leather chairs. That their crucial deal requires their failure daughter's approval. I pulled out the merger documents. They're about to find out. James leaned forward. You know, they approached us 6 months ago, so confident. Your brother especially, practically guaranteed the deal was done. When I mentioned we had other advisors, they didn't even ask who. Derek never was big on due diligence. I started reviewing the terms. They're offering $80 million. And it's worth at least $120. I set down the papers. They're trying to underpay by $40 million, James. I can't let that happen to one of our clients. He nodded. I assumed you'd say that. What's our next move? I picked up my phone. Sophie, please call Harrison Global. Tell them we need an emergency meeting about the Summit Technologies merger. Today. Playing your hand? James asked. Time to show my cards. I looked out at the city skyline, the same view my father had always bragged about from his office, though mine was 10 floors higher. They wanted me to join the family business. They just didn't expect it would happen like this. An hour later, Sophie's voice came through the intercom. Harrison Global executives are here. Your father, brother, and sister. I straightened the merger documents on my desk. Send them in. The door opened, and I watched their expressions shift from confusion to shock as they took in my office. The view, the furniture, the clear trappings of serious success. Madison? My father stopped short. What? What is this? This, I gestured around. This is Cornerstone Partners, my investment firm. The one you said would never succeed. Derek's face had gone pale. You own Cornerstone. Founded it. Built it. Turned it into one of the most successful private investment firms in the city. I smiled. And as it happens, Summit Technologies is one of our most valued clients. The blood drained from my father's face as understanding dawned. No. Yes. I held up the merger documents. Your $80 million deal, it needs my signature. The silence that followed was deafening. 3 years of mockery, dismissal, and condescension had led to this moment. The family that said I'd never succeed was about to learn just how wrong they'd been. And this was only the beginning. My father was the first to recover from the shock, his business instincts kicking in. Madison, he said, forcing a smile. Why didn't you tell us? This is impressive. Impressive. I raised an eyebrow. Yesterday at Thanksgiving, you were all still mocking my little investment job. What change? The office? The view? Or the fact that I hold the future of Harrison Global in my hands? Vanessa stepped forward, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Come on, Mads. We're family. All that stuff before, we were just teasing. Teasing. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out an old recorder. Let's refresh our memories, shall we? I pressed play. Their voices from 3 years ago filled the room. She'll never make it 6 months. Derek's voice. Who would trust her with their money? Vanessa's laughter. She lacks the killer instinct. No Harrison Drive. Dad's dismissal. I stopped the recording. I kept this as motivation. Every time I doubted myself, I'd play it. Remember what you all thought of me. It worked better than any pep talk. That was a long time ago, Derek protested weakly. Really? Because just yesterday you were all still treating me like a failure. I stood up, walking to the window. Do you know what Cornerstone's assets under management are? They shook their heads. $2 billion. 4 times what Harrison Global manages. I turned back to face them. That little investment firm you've been mocking? We're one of the top performers in the market. My father sank into one of the chairs, looking suddenly old. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? Or would you have found some way to dismiss it, like you dismissed everything else I've ever achieved? But the Summit Technologies deal, Derek interrupted, his face flushed. We've been working on this for months. Yes, trying to underpay by $40 million. I picked up the merger documents. Did you really think James Morton wouldn't have his own advisors looking out for his interests? James Morton. Vanessa's eyes widened. He knew. All this time? I smiled. He's been a client since I started Cornerstone. He found it quite amusing when Harrison Global approached him, so confident they'd get a bargain. We need this deal, my father said quietly. Harrison Global is leveraged on this acquisition. I know. I sat back down at my desk. I've seen your books. You've bet everything on this merger. If it falls through, you'll lose half your clients. Maybe more. The silence that followed was heavy with realization. They were completely at my mercy. What do you want? Derek asked, his usual arrogance replaced by desperation. Want? I laughed softly. What makes you think this is a negotiation? Madison, please. My father leaned forward. Whatever happened in the past, we're still family. Family? I pressed a button on my intercom. Sophie, please send in Mr. Morton. James walked in, nodding cordially to my stunned family members before taking a seat. James has an interesting story about how this deal came about, I said. Would you like to share, James? He smiled. When Derek here first approached us, he was quite aggressive. Insisted that we'd never get a better offer than Harrison Global's. Said we'd be foolish not to take it immediately. Derek shifted uncomfortably. What Derek didn't know, James continued, was that I was having dinner with Madison that same night. We had a good laugh about it. You've been playing us, Vanessa accused. No, I've been protecting my client's interests. I stood up. Harrison Global's offer is $40 million below market value. That's not happening. We can't go higher, my father said. The financing won't allow it. I know. I pressed another button on my intercom. Sophie, send in the Cornerstone proposal. My assistant entered with another set of documents, distributing them to everyone in the room. "What's this?" Derek asked, flipping through the pages. "A counteroffer," I said. "Cornerstone Partners will finance the additional $40 million in exchange for a 30% stake in Harrison Global." The explosion was immediate. "Absolutely not," Derek shouted. "Out of the question," Vanessa snapped. But my father was silent, reading through the terms carefully. He understood what they didn't. This was their only way out. "If you refuse," I said calmly, "I'll have to advise James to decline Harrison Global's offer. His fiduciary duties require him to seek full market value. Your over-leveraged position becomes public knowledge. Your clients start pulling out. You destroy your own family's company." Vanessa asked incredulously. "You mean like how you tried to destroy my dreams of starting my own firm?" I met her eyes. "The difference is, I'm offering you a lifeline. You just have to swallow your pride and take it." James cleared his throat. "For what it's worth, I think it's a fair offer. Harrison Global gets their merger, Summit Technologies gets fair value, and Cornerstone adds another solid investment to its portfolio." My father finally looked up from the documents. "We'd still maintain controlling interest. 70% stays with the family," I confirmed, "though Cornerstone would require board representation." "Meaning you," Derek said bitterly. "Meaning I attend the meetings you never thought I was good enough for." I smiled. Ironic, isn't it? The room fell silent as they absorbed the reality of their situation. Everything they'd mocked, my independence, my ambition, my business acumen, had led to this moment. "We need time to discuss this," my father finally said. "You have 1 hour," I replied. After that, I advised James to decline Harrison Global's offer and seek other buyers. They filed out, leaving me alone with James. "That was quite a show," he said admiringly. "Though I suspect this is just the beginning." I nodded, looking out at the city below. They thought they were teaching me a lesson all those years ago. They never realized they were giving me the motivation to surpass them all. The next hour would change everything. The family that had dismissed me was about to become my business partners, whether they liked it or not. And I had a feeling they really wouldn't like what came next. Exactly 1 hour later, my family returned to my office. Their faces told the story before they spoke. They'd realized they had no choice. "We accept your terms," my father said, each word seeming to cause him physical pain. I didn't smile. Instead, I pulled out the final contracts, already prepared. "Sign here and here," initial each page. As they signed, I thought about the journey that had led to this moment. 3 years of working in silence, building something they couldn't dismiss or diminish. 3 years of listening to their mockery while knowing that someday everything would change. "One more thing," I said as they finished signing. "I want the Harrison family estate." My mother, who had been silent until now, gasped. "The house? But that's been in the family for generations." "Exactly." I met my father's eyes. "The house where you told me I'd never succeed. Where you made bets on my failure. I think it's fitting that it becomes mine. Don't you?" "That's spite," Derek spat. "Pure spite." "No," I corrected him. "That's business. The Harrison way, remember? Take what you want and never show weakness. Isn't that what you taught me?" My father's hand trembled as he signed the transfer deed for the house. 30 years of building his empire, and in one morning, his failure daughter had taken control. "The board meets next Tuesday," I said, gathering the signed documents. "I'll expect full financial reports and operational details before then. You're really going to do this? Vanessa asked. Join the board of the company you refuse to work for. I smiled. Oh, I'm not joining the board. I'm chairing it. The silence that followed was deafening. As Cornerstone's managing partner, and now Harrison Global's largest individual shareholder, I'll be taking over as chairman of the board. I handed them each a folder. Here's my plan for restructuring the company. We'll be making some changes. Derek flipped through the documents, his face growing redder by the page. This is a complete overhaul. You can't just come in and... I can and I will. I cut him off. Harrison Global has been underperforming for years. Your management style is outdated. Your investment strategies are conservative to the point of stagnation, and your corporate culture is toxic. How dare you? My father started, but I held up my hand. Your return on investment is half the industry average. You've lost major clients to more innovative firms. The only reason you're still afloat is family name recognition. I leaned forward. That changes now. And I suppose you think you can do better. Vanessa sneered, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her fear. I don't think. I know. I pressed a button on my desk, and the wall screen lit up with Cornerstone's performance metrics. These are our returns over the last 3 years. Compare them to Harrison Global's. The numbers told the story better than words ever could. Cornerstone had consistently outperformed not just Harrison Global, but most of our competitors. This is what success looks like, I said quietly. Real success, not the kind you measure in corner offices and country club memberships. My father stared at the screen, then at me, seeing me clearly perhaps for the first time. You really did it, didn't you? Built all this on your own. No thanks to any of you. I stood up and walked to the window. You know what the difference is between us. You built Harrison Global to prove something to the world. I built Cornerstone to prove something to myself. And now you want revenge, Derek said bitterly. I turned back to face them. If I wanted revenge, I'd dismantle Harrison Global piece by piece. Instead, I'm going to save it. Transform it. Make it better than it ever was under your leadership. Why? My mother asked softly. Because unlike you, I understand that success isn't about destroying others to elevate yourself. It's about creating something meaningful. I pressed my intercom. Sophie, please send in the executive team. The doors opened and 6 people entered. Cornerstone's top executives, each an expert in their field. People I'd hired not for their family connections or social status, but for their talent and vision. Meet your new management team, I announced. They'll be overseeing the integration of Harrison Global into the Cornerstone family of companies. You're absorbing us, my father's voice cracked. Merging, I corrected. Though given the disparity in size and performance, it's more of an acquisition. Derek stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. I won't work for my little sister. You're right, I agreed. You won't. Your position is being eliminated, effective immediately. Vanessa's too. They stared at me in shock. You can't fire us, Vanessa protested. We're family. Exactly what you told me 3 years ago when I wanted to start my own firm. Funny how that works both ways now. My father remained seated, looking suddenly very old. And me? You'll retain an advisory position, non-executive. I softened my tone slightly. You built something significant, Dad, but you let pride and arrogance blind you to its flaws, and to my potential. He nodded slowly, decades of certainty crumbling around him. The Harrison name will continue, I assured them, but it's time for new leadership. Leadership that understands that true success isn't about domination. It's about creation. One by one, they left my office, their worlds forever changed. Only my mother lingered behind. The family dinner next Sunday, she said hesitantly. Will you still come? I thought about all the dinners where I'd sat quietly, enduring their judgment and mockery. Yes, but things will be different now. Because you won, she asked. Because I succeeded, despite all of you. After they left, I sat in my office as the sun set over the city. Sophie brought in a bottle of champagne, the same vintage my father used to proudly serve at family functions. Congratulations, she said, pouring 2 glasses. Though somehow I don't think this is how they imagined bringing you into the family business. I laughed, taking a sip. No, I imagine they pictured me in a junior position, working my way up through their approval. Instead, you bought your way in from the top. Not bought, I corrected. Earned. Every penny, every client, every success, I earned it all. My phone buzzed with a message from James Morton. Brilliant performance today. Your grandmother would have been proud. I smiled, remembering the woman who'd believed in me when no one else did. Who'd left me the seed money to start Cornerstone, swearing me to secrecy until the time was right. To Grandma Rose, I raised my glass. Who taught me that success isn't about proving them wrong? It's about proving yourself right. The next morning, I arrived early at Harrison Global's offices, soon to be renovated and rebranded. The security guard did a double take when I used my new key card. In the executive suite, I found Derek and Vanessa clearing out their offices, shooting me venomous looks as I passed. My father's office, my new office, still held the trappings of his reign. Photos of deals closed, awards won, the carefully curated image of success he built. I set down my briefcase and opened the curtains, letting in the morning light. On the desk, I placed a single framed photo. Me at 22, fresh out of college, standing in front of the tiny office where Cornerstone began. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about the corner office or the family name. It was about having the courage to believe in yourself when no one else would. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Harrison? The board is ready for your first meeting. I smiled, straightening my jacket. Time to show them what real success looks like. On my way, I replied, taking one last look around the office that had once been the symbol of everything I couldn't achieve. Now it was just another room in my growing empire, an empire built not on family connections or inherited privilege, but on determination, vision, and the burning desire to prove that success comes in many forms. And sometimes the sweetest success is the kind they never see coming. I never planned to keep my success a secret. Standing outside my childhood home on Christmas Eve, watching snowflakes settle on my designer coat, I thought about how different things could have been if my family had believed in me just once. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm the founder and CEO of Artemis Consulting Group, one of the most prestigious management consulting firms in North America. But to my family, I'm still just the disappointment who quit her stable job at Anderson and Brooks 5 years ago to play business owner. The Christmas lights twinkled mockingly as I remembered last year's holiday dinner. When are you going to get a real job? My sister Olivia had asked, adjusting her Cartier bracelet. Dad knows people at Goldman Sachs. They're always looking for back-office support staff. I'd smiled politely and said nothing about the fact that Goldman Sachs had hired my firm last month for a $100 million restructuring project. My father, Richard Mitchell, was a mid-level executive at Mitchell Ward Technologies, a regional tech company started by his father. He'd worked there for 30 years, slowly climbing the corporate ladder while watching his younger brother Thomas become CEO. The bitterness of playing second fiddle to his brother had shaped our entire family dynamic. Success is about stability, he'd drill into us at dinner. Following the safe path. Building connections. He'd then gesture to my sister Olivia, who'd followed his blueprint perfectly. Business school, entry-level position at a prestigious firm, carefully orchestrated networking events. I'd chosen a different path. After graduating with a double major in business and computer science, I spent 3 years at Anderson & Brooks, learning everything I could about management consulting. While my colleagues chased promotions and office politics, I was building something bigger. I started small, taking on independent consulting projects on nights and weekends. My first client was a struggling software startup that needed help streamlining their operations. Within 6 months, I'd helped them triple their revenue. Word spread quickly in the tech community. The day I quit Anderson & Brooks, my father exploded. "You're throwing away a perfectly good career for some pipe dream," he'd shouted. "No one will take you seriously as an independent consultant." He was right about one thing. Being independent wasn't enough. So I created Artemis Consulting Group, named after the goddess of strategy and the hunt. I kept my name off all public documents, operating through a complex network of holding companies. To the business world, Artemis was a mysterious but highly effective consulting firm. To my family, I was just Sarah, the struggling freelance consultant working out of a small office downtown. That small office was actually a front. My real headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of the city's most prestigious business tower. But my family never visited, so they never knew. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. My mother answered, her face lighting up briefly before settling into its usual worried expression. "Sarah, honey, we were starting to think you wouldn't come." She hugged me quickly, then whispered, "Your Uncle Thomas is here with the board members. Try not to mention your consulting thing." Inside, the house was packed with the usual Christmas crowd: family, business associates, and my uncle's influential friends. Olivia held court near the fireplace, showing off her engagement ring to a group of admirers. Her fiancé Marcus, a junior executive at Mitchell Ward, stood nearby looking important. "Sarah." My father's voice boomed across the room. He'd clearly had a few drinks already. "Come meet Bob Warren from Apex Solutions. They're looking for someone to handle their data entry." I bit back a laugh. Apex Solutions was actually one of my clients. We were in the middle of orchestrating their $200 million expansion into Asian markets. But of course, they were dealing with AP, the mysterious CEO of Artemis, not Sarah Mitchell, the supposed failure. "Actually, Dad," I started, but was cut off by Uncle Thomas's arrival. He swept into the room like a king, trailed by several board members. My father's expression tightened, the familiar mix of resentment and forced respect. "Richard?" Thomas clapped my father on the back too hard. "Quite a year we're having at Mitchell Ward. Though this merger situation is giving me gray hairs." He laughed loudly. I perked up at the mention of the merger. Mitchell Ward had been desperately trying to arrange a merger with Global Tech Industries for months. What my uncle didn't know was that Global Tech was one of my shell companies, created specifically for this purpose. "You know, Thomas," my father said, shooting me a warning look, "Sarah does some consulting work. Maybe she could." "Consulting?" Thomas snorted. "We need serious solutions, Richard. We're working with the best. Artemis Consulting Group. though their CEO is impossible to meet. Very mysterious. I sipped my wine to hide my smile. I had been deliberately dodging Mitchell Ward's meeting requests for weeks, letting them sweat. Speaking of which, one of the board members chimed in. Has anyone managed to set up that meeting with AP? The global tech deadline is coming up. Not yet, Thomas growled, but they'll have to meet with us eventually. We're Mitchell Ward, after all. I couldn't help myself. Maybe they're not impressed by the name. The room went silent. My father's face darkened. Sarah, he warned. But I continued. From what I hear, Mitchell Ward's market position isn't as strong as you think. The global tech merger isn't a power play. It's a desperate move to avoid bankruptcy. I knew I'd gone too far, but years of condescension and dismissal had finally boiled over. Uncle Thomas's face turned purple. How dare you? What would you know about our company's position? My father grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the kitchen. I need to speak with you. Now. In the kitchen, he exploded. Have you lost your mind? Embarrassing me in front of Thomas? In front of the board? I was just. You're a disgrace, he shouted. Working your little consulting jobs, pretending you understand business. You know nothing about the real corporate world. The kitchen door opened. Olivia stood there smirking, with Marcus and several others peering in curiously. Maybe she should leave, Dad, Olivia suggested sweetly. We don't want to upset Uncle Thomas further. This merger is too important. My father's face hardened. She's right. Get out. We don't want a lowly consultant here, spreading lies about our company. I looked at their faces, my father's anger, Olivia's satisfaction, my mother's silent compliance. 5 years of hiding my success, of letting them believe I was a failure, all led to this moment. Fine, I said quietly, gathering my coat. But remember this moment. Tomorrow might be interesting. Is that a threat? Marcus sneered. What could you possibly do? I smiled, thinking of the merger documents sitting on my desk, waiting for my signature, not as Sarah Mitchell, but as AP, CEO of Artemis Consulting Group. Merry Christmas, I said, and walked out into the snowy night, leaving them to their celebration. They had no idea that tomorrow their entire world would turn upside down. The next morning, I arrived at Artemis headquarters before dawn. The city was still sleeping, but the top floors of our building hummed with activity. My team knew today was important, though none of them knew about my personal connection to Mitchell Ward. Good morning, Miss Phoenix. My executive assistant, Emma, greeted me, using my business name. She was one of only 3 people who knew both sides of my life. The Mitchell Ward delegation is scheduled for 10 a.m. Your uncle has called 4 times already, trying to move it earlier. I smiled, settling into my office. The entire floor was designed to project power. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern art worth millions. And at the center, my desk made from a single piece of rare black walnut. This was where I truly belonged, not in my father's kitchen being told I knew nothing about business. How many are coming? I asked, reviewing the merger documents. 8, Emma replied. Thomas Mitchell, 4 board members, their CEO, and she hesitated. And your father and sister. Mr. Mitchell insisted on bringing his head of strategic planning and her fiancé. Of course he did. Olivia had been promoted to that position last month. Another example of Mitchell Ward's nepotism. I took a deep breath, remembering last night's humiliation. Emma, call Gregory at Global Tech. Tell him to be ready. She nodded, understanding perfectly. Gregory ran Global Tech, my shell company, and knew exactly what role to play in today's drama. At 9:45, Emma's voice came through the intercom. "They're here. Early, as expected." "Let them wait 15 minutes, I instructed. "Then bring them to the main conference room." I used those 15 minutes to steady myself. The moment I stepped into that conference room, everything would change. No more hiding, no more pretending to be less than I was. At exactly 10 a.m., I heard them being led into the conference room. Through the frosted glass walls, I could see their figures: Uncle Thomas pacing impatiently, my father sitting stiffly, Olivia whispering to Marcus. I straightened my Armani suit, checked my reflection one last time, and opened the door. The silence was immediate and absolute. Uncle Thomas recovered first. "What is this? Where is AP?" "We're here to meet with the CEO of Artemis." I walked calmly to the head of the table. "You are." "I'm AP, Ann Phoenix, CEO of Artemis Consulting Group." I smiled at their shocked faces. "Though you might know me better as Sarah Mitchell." "This is impossible," my father whispered, his face ashen. Olivia stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. "This is a joke. She's lying. She's just a small-time consultant." "Sit down, Olivia," I said quietly, but with enough authority that she obeyed automatically. "Emma, please distribute the packages." Emma handed each person a thick folder containing detailed analyses of Mitchell Ward's financial position, market vulnerabilities, and my proposed merger terms. "As you can see," I continued, "Mitchell Ward's position is extremely precarious. Your attempt to modernize your technology infrastructure has failed, burning through cash reserves. Your market share has dropped 40% in 3 years. Without this merger, you're 6 months from bankruptcy." Uncle Thomas's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "How dare you? These numbers, these are confidential." "Nothing is confidential from me," I replied. "Artemis has been watching Mitchell Ward for years. We own significant portions of your debt through subsidiary companies. We also own Global Tech Industries." Marcus laughed nervously. "That's ridiculous. Global Tech is a major international corporation." "Global Tech is a shell company I created specifically to force this merger," I revealed, enjoying their growing horror. Every deadline, every pressure point, every negotiation deadline, all orchestrated by me. My father found his voice. "Why? Why would you do this?" I met his eyes across the table. "Because you never believed in me, any of you. Last night you threw me out of Christmas dinner for daring to speak about business. Well, let me speak about business now." I pressed a button, and the room's screens lit up with more financial data. "Mitchell Ward needs this merger to survive, but it will happen on my terms. First, the entire current board will resign." "This is outrageous." Uncle Thomas slammed his hand on the table. "We'll never agree to this." "Then Mitchell Ward will collapse," I said simply. "Your choice." The next hour was chaos. Uncle Thomas threatened legal action. Olivia burst into tears. The board members huddled together, whispering frantically. My father sat in stunned silence, staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Finally, Uncle Thomas deflated. "What are your terms?" I laid out my conditions: complete restructuring of the company, new management, and most importantly, an end to the nepotism that had weakened Mitchell Ward for years. "Olivia and Marcus will be removed from their positions," I stated firmly. All future appointments will be based on merit, not family connections. You can't do this, Olivia sobbed. Daddy, tell her she can't do this. But our father said nothing. He knew I could, and I would. As they found out hours later, having signed everything, my father lingered behind. Sarah, he started, but I cut him off. You should go, Dad. Emma will show you out. He aged 10 years in that moment. I was wrong about you. So wrong. Yes, I agreed. You were. Merry Christmas. After they left, I stood at my office window, watching the city lights come on as evening fell. Emma appeared with a glass of champagne. Congratulations, she said softly. Though I suspect this isn't over. She was right. This was just the beginning. My family now knew who I really was, but they had no idea what I was truly capable of. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Restructuring Mitchell Ward, dealing with the press, managing the fallout from my revelation. But for now, I savored this moment of victory. The little consultant they kicked out of Christmas dinner now controlled their destiny. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it just needs to be perfectly, professionally executed. I raised my glass to my reflection in the window. Merry Christmas, indeed. The weeks following the Christmas merger meeting were a hurricane of change. News of my identity spread through the business world like wildfire. Mysterious Artemis CEO revealed. The billion-dollar family secret. The press couldn't get enough of the story. I sat in my office, reviewing yet another headline. Sarah Mitchell, the woman who built an empire while her family thought she was failing. My phone buzzed. Another message from Olivia. The 10th this week. I deleted it without reading. Miss Phoenix, Emma appeared at my door. The transition team is ready for your final approval on the Mitchell Ward restructuring. The last month had been brutal for my family. Uncle Thomas resigned publicly, though not before trying to challenge the merger in court. His attempt failed spectacularly when our legal team revealed the extent of his mismanagement. My father took early retirement, unable to face working under his daughter's authority. Olivia and Marcus had been the most dramatic. After being removed from their positions, they launched a social media campaign painting me as a vengeful sister who destroyed the family business out of spite. It backfired when financial journalists dug deeper, exposing how their incompetence and nepotistic appointments had nearly bankrupted Mitchell Ward. Your mother's here, Emma said quietly, in the lobby. I paused, surprised. My mother hadn't tried to contact me since the merger. Send her up. A few minutes later, she walked into my office, looking small and uncertain in this space that radiated power. Her eyes widened, taking in the view. The expensive art, the clear symbols of success she'd never noticed in her daughter. Sarah, she began, twisting her hands together. This is quite an office. What do you want, Mom? She sat down heavily in one of the visitor chairs. Your father's not well. The stress of everything. He's not sleeping, barely eating. Olivia's engagement ended. Marcus left her when he lost his position. The family is falling apart. I kept my face neutral. That's unfortunate. But business decisions can't be based on family sentiment. Mitchell Ward is already showing improvement under new management. I'm not here about the business, she said softly. I'm here to understand. All these years, watching you work so hard, thinking you were struggling. Why didn't you tell us? I laughed without humor. Tell you? Every time I achieved something, you dismissed it. When I made my first $1 million, you were too busy celebrating Olivia's promotion to notice I'd bought a new car. When I acquired my first major company, you told me to consider applying for an entry-level position at Mitchell Ward. We were trying to help. No, I cut her off. You were trying to force me into your narrow definition of success. Did you know that while you were all mocking my little consulting business, I was building one of the largest consulting firms in the country? That the daughter you pitied was worth more than the entire Mitchell family combined? Tears filled her eyes. We were wrong. So wrong. But Sarah, we're still family. Family? I stood up, walking to the window. Last Christmas, you watched in silence as they threw me out. You've had years to stand up for me, to see me. You chose not to. Can't we try to fix this? I turned back to her. Mitchell Ward will be fixed. The company will thrive under professional management. But the family? I shook my head. That's not something I'm interested in fixing right now. Sarah, Emma will show you out, I said firmly. Goodbye, Mom. After she left, I buried myself in work, but my mother's visit had stirred up emotions I thought I'd buried. Later that evening, as I was preparing to leave, Emma brought in one final document. The last piece of the Mitchell Ward restructuring, she said. Once you sign this, the transformation is complete. I looked at the paper. A formal dissolution of all family interests in the company's management. No more Mitchells in positions of power. The end of an era. As I raised my pen to sign, I remembered something my grandmother told me years ago, before she passed away. Success isn't just about proving others wrong, Sarah. It's about proving yourself right. I'd proven myself right beyond any doubt. I'd built something remarkable while they weren't watching. Their opinion of me no longer mattered. I signed the document. 6 months later, Mitchell Ward's stock had doubled under new management. I'd received dozens of messages from family members, ranging from angry accusations to desperate attempts at reconciliation. I responded to none of them. Then one day, a different kind of message arrived. From my cousin Sophie, Uncle Thomas's youngest daughter. Unlike the rest of the family, Sophie had never participated in the mockery. She'd been quietly working her way up through a tech startup, facing the same kind of dismissal I once had. I don't want anything, her message read. I just want you to know that you inspired me. Watching you reveal who you really are, it gave me courage. I'm starting my own company. Not asking for help, just wanted you to know. For the first time since Christmas, I smiled at a family message. Emma, I called, set up a lunch meeting, and look into a tech startup run by Sophie Mitchell. Emma raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Yes, I said firmly, but not as family. As an investor interested in supporting genuine talent. Sometimes success isn't about grand revenge or public humiliation. Sometimes it's about finding unexpected allies in the rubble of broken relationships. Sometimes it's about helping others break free from the same chains that once held you back. I built an empire in silence while my family underestimated me. Their shock at discovering my true identity was satisfying, but the real victory wasn't in their downfall. It was in finally, fully becoming who I was always meant to be. Not the daughter they wanted, but the woman I chose to be. The empire I built wasn't just about money or power. It was about proving that success doesn't need anyone's permission or approval. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well, on your own terms. And as I looked out over the city from my office, I knew that this was just the beginning. The little consultant they kicked out of Christmas dinner hadn't just taken over their company. She'd taken control of her own destiny. That's worth more than any merger.